The Pittsburgh Steelers might have something special. They might be on the verge of something massive. Now, let's go back a couple of months. Let's set the scene here. We're on here talking about how the Pittsburgh Steelers and Brandon Aiyuk and the rumors and the reports and everything going around are real, that they are interested in the San Francisco 49ers wide receiver. That came right from all Steelers talk. Then it comes out that they had a trade in place during the NFL draft. It wasn't finalized. The San Francisco 49ers are doing everything in their power to keep Brandon Aiyuk, and they're not trying to get rid of him and so on and so forth, causing all sorts of issues. Aiyuk from there just continues to say on social media and everywhere else that the 49ers and him are not close on a deal. Meanwhile, Adam Schefter's getting news straight from the San Francisco 49ers saying that they're optimistic. Things are going to work out, that they will continue to negotiate, and they feel good that Aiyuk is going to be on the San Francisco 49ers come the start of the season. They're not looking to trade him. Here we are after a quiet period, times where you thought it was over, where you thought this was the end of it. We were quiet. There was going to be no news until the end of August. Reports come out yesterday from NFL Network's Mike Garofalo that Brandon Aiyuk has officially requested a trade from the San Francisco 49ers, and he is available. Now, the 49ers have come out and said that they are not trying to trade him right now, that they don't have any intentions of trading him. Training camp starts next week. At some point, this is going to happen because the 49ers are hitting the end of the road. We said this was going to happen. We said that it was going to be closer during or after training camp, that they would eventually hit a breaking point. And I think the breaking point is still a couple of days away, but it's here. Aiyuk has an issue with the 49ers. Other 49ers wide receivers and Juwan Jennings are like calling him out on Instagram. Crazy day for the 49ers. He is officially available, and I'm sorry, but I don't believe the 49ers anymore or the report saying that they aren't going to trade him. They're just doing their talk. They're trying to keep a level head and keep things calm and try one final attempt to make things work, but things are not going to work out with Brandon Aiyuk and the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'll tell you why you should be optimistic if you are the Pittsburgh Steelers. And that is, you could have the conversation and you could debate it all day long on whether or not the 49 or the Steelers should trade and sign Aiyuk. Should they go out and spend $30+ million on a wide receiver? Everybody's allowed to have their opinion on that. Have they done it in the past? No. Do all signs point to a new Pittsburgh Steelers regime and changes in their mottos and so on and so forth? Yes, but still it's a wide receiver position, so you just never know if that's top of their list. You could have all your hypotheticals and all your whatever and all your opinions. It comes down simply to this. The Pittsburgh Steelers were ready to make this happen during the NFL draft. They were prepared to do whatever they needed to do to make it happen during the NFL draft, which you have to believe means signing Brandon Aiyuk to a long-term, massive contract. If they were open to it then, I have a hard time believing they're not open to it now, especially after OTAs and minicamp and them realizing most likely that Van Jefferson and Quez Watkins and Marquez Callaway aren't going to be enough to get them over the hump and get them in contention for a Super Bowl. They're ready to make a move. You heard the news yesterday. I think it's coming, and I think it's coming fast. Your thoughts when the cycle hit and everybody freaked out for about an hour or two on Brandon Aiyuk requesting a trade?
Well, the one thing that surprised me the most out of all of this is the second part of Garofalo's tweet, which was basically saying the Niners have not been willing to negotiate with the Brandon Aiyuk camp since May. And when you hear that, and then you immediately see the Schefter report of them saying, well, we're not interested in trading him. It's like, well, you're not interested in signing him to an extension either. So who's going to give here? And it comes down to, what does Brandon Aiyuk want to do? Does he say, you know what, that's fine, I'll sit out until you trade me? And at that point, the only option is going to be for the Niners to trade him, or does he want to play? And if that's the case, then the Niners will get what they want. They typically do in these situations. They did with Nick Bosa. They did with Deebo Samuel a couple years back or last year. I can't remember when. So it comes down to how Brandon Aiyuk wants to play this. And if he wants to play it as, I'm not playing for you guys because you guys didn't want to re-sign me, then that's when the trade becomes more realistic. And that's what we have to wait for training camp to start next week and see whether or not Aiyuk is present.
Yeah, I think it's hilarious that the 49ers, 49ers are sitting around going, we do not want to sign you. We also do not want to trade you. We would just like for you to come play for us. That would be great. We'd really appreciate it if you just did that and gave us one more year. And then next year, we'll probably franchise tag you and piss you off even more, because that's essentially what they're saying. The 49ers could talk all day long. That's my point here. And I agree with you. Like, they've done this before with the Nick Bosa and the Deebo Samuel. They've had these long, drawn-out negotiations where things have looked dramatic. I don't know if anything's looked this dramatic, but Deebo Samuel looked dramatic. But I still don't think it was this dramatic. Brandon Aiyuk has topped the charts. He's also going to be more expensive than everybody else because Samuel was the first jump in the wide receiver market. This is the second jump in the wide receiver market. And this one's big because, you're going to pay a guy $25 million. I get it, but you saw where the salary cap was going, $30+ million after you have Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, all these guys under contract. Brock Purdy eventually has to get paid. I get that he's super cheap right now, but eventually that's going to factor into some things. You got to look at it and say at some point you got to draw a line. Aiyuk might be the line. When it comes to them kind of hitting that breaking point and when that's going to happen, I don't think that this one's going to turn out the same way that the others did, just simply because they're out of space. They're out of room. They're out of negotiation. Aiyuk has made it very clear he wants out. That's the other difference, is the other people here, the Bosas, the Samuel, there was never I want to be traded. There was never a moment of, I officially accept a trade request. This is getting a little too far out of hand. The 49ers are kind of backed against the wall. At some point, they're going to have to make a move. Now, the Steelers have competition. That's very important in this entire thing. Is the New England Patriots reportedly reached out and made a phone call. The Washington Commanders are obviously in the running. I heard whispers of the New York Jets at one point being interested in a Brandon Aiyuk. I still think the Steelers are top of that line. Omar Khan's ready to make something happen. He doesn't care. The way I look at Omar right now is that he's ready to win a Super Bowl. He's not ready to win a Super Bowl in 2 years. He's not ready to do this the Steelers way. He's not ready to do anything. He wants to ingrain himself in Pittsburgh Steelers history and win a Super Bowl immediately. He wants to make this his team, make it his impact, and show the world, hey, I'm damn good at this, and I could go win a Super Bowl. And I think he knows that having a star wide receiver gets him over that hump much more, or gets him much closer to getting over that hump than walking in there with George Pickens and Van Jefferson and Calvin Austin and Roman Wilson and Pat Freiermuth. It does. And it's hard to deny that it does. When you look at the situation that the Steelers are in and the 49ers are in, are they giving up a first-round pick still for a guy like Brandon Aiyuk now that all this has come out?
It's going to be harder for the 49ers to recoup that. But at the same time, what's stopping them from just saying, all right, if you're not giving us what we want, we'll just let it play out here and see what it is. I think that it's going to be harder for them to get that. I think the Steelers know that this is a situation that is not going in a positive direction for San Francisco, and so does everybody else in the National Football League, because they all have more information than we do. And we can see plain as day that this is not going in a way that is going to result in the San Francisco 49ers getting everything they wanted. So I think it's going to be hard for them to get a first, but I think that's still where they're going to try to start the prices. And I think if there's a bidding war, it might have to be bid up to that, because somebody might be desperate enough to say, we want this guy who could potentially be a top 10 receiver for the next several years in the National Football League.
Yeah, I think it could get bid up to a first-round pick. I think if the Steelers are the only team that are making a move, or them in Washington, then it could be a second. I also believe that even if the Washington Commanders are a bad team right now, the 49ers will give Aiyuk to the Steelers before the Commanders, simply because get him out of the NFC. You don't want to deal with that in 2024. The 49ers whipped the Steelers last year. It was the first week of last season.
Yeah.
So you look at it and go, this is a team that's probably very confident that they could beat the Steelers. Send them over there. We'll give them to you for less than we'd give them to you for the Washington Commanders. Now, the other side of this is the contract. Obviously, people are going to argue against it. I'm not pro sign a wide receiver to $30 million a year. That's not my side of the argument. Simply stating and simply reporting on what I believe will happen. You got to believe that he's getting a 30 $31 million a year deal for the Steelers. Capable of happening. Definitely capable of happening. Probably shuts down any long-term extension for a guy like Russell Wilson when it comes to paying a quarterback a boatload of money on top of a wide receiver a boatload of money, but could happen. Do you think that's still on the table? Because also when they were ready to do it back then, it was probably more like $26-28 million. Now it's $32 million. Do you think that's a possibility for the Steelers as well?
I think that especially with this new regime, I think there's a chance that he does go out and do that simply because what you mentioned earlier, he wants a Super Bowl. And if you bring in Aiyuk and you win a Super Bowl, then a lot of your sins are going to be washed away, right? Paying a wide receiver $31 million gets washed away if you add another Lombardi to the trophy case. And I think when it comes to where the Steelers are at, as far as without Aiyuk, they're missing that one piece. And if that is what Omar sees, and he says, this is the piece that puts us over the top, that puts us in the top tier of the AFC, then I wouldn't be surprised if he went out and did that. But also because you look at where the Steelers are at and you look at where, the other teams in the NFL have done. You look at what the Rams have done over the last couple of years. Yes. I know that ownership's a little different, but at the same time, people have shown that you can figure something out in the future if you want to win now and you just need to make that commitment. So I think the Steelers, with the focus that they've had this year, I think that door is still open for them as well. Yeah.
Yes. I don't look at ownership and Art Rooney the same way I looked at ownership and Art Rooney last year, because I believe that he is listening more to Omar Khan and trying to gain a future perspective of where the NFL is going and how it's working. I don't believe Art Rooney's sitting around currently saying we have to stick to the Steelers way. That's worked, because it hasn't worked in years. He's pretty upset about it. He'd like to win some playoff games. He's ready to listen to Omar Khan and say, hey, let's be aggressive. Let's go out there and make some moves that put us over the edge. We'll deal with the repercussions after that. We'll figure it out after that. And teams have worked that way. You could say whatever you want about the LA Rams. The LA Rams are still a playoff team. They remain a playoff team. They've done this. They've figured this out. It's not a, hey, throw it all at the wall, hope it sticks. It's stuck and then it all falls apart and it's over forever. That used to be the case. Sometimes that is the case. It doesn't always work out that way. And I believe the Steelers have the infrastructure, the pieces in place to make this last longer than just a year. You got to think that defense is going to remain intact and it's going to be just as dominant in 2-3 years as it is right now. You got to figure out the quarterback position, but your offensive line is young and you can work with that. George Pickens is going to be the guy you have to pay, but besides that, you're not going to have a massive contract on offense, and you can figure out the quarterback situation. If you sign Justin Fields or Russell Wilson for cheap next season, or you go NFL draft, which is their three most likely avenues for quarterback, you're not paying anybody a boatload of money. So I think it's sustainable for the Steelers to make a massive move here. Sign Aiyuk to a long-term deal that's probably over a price tag that anybody feels comfortable with, and still make it work past 2024 while reaping the benefits in 2024. I believe that's all possible. Doesn't make them a Super Bowl contender.
Yes, 100%. And this was a playoff team that was close to the Buffalo Bills last year. I think their defense got better. I think, especially by the time playoffs come around, the offensive line will be better. You have a good running team. You have a solid offensive coordinator. And then you add a guy in Brandon Aiyuk who is a 1.1 next to a George Pickens who has the potential to break out as a 1.1 this year. Yep. It makes him a Super Bowl contender. Now, again, at the same time, does it make him the favorite? No, because Patrick Mahomes exists. But it does put them in that upper tier with teams like the Ravens, teams like, the Miami Dolphins, teams like the Buffalo Bills.
Yes, I agree. You add two offensive weapons, and you don't know what Russell Wilson's going to bring to your team, but you got to believe it's better than what you've had the last 2 seasons. That's good. On top of a dominant defense, a strong running game, and a capable offensive coordinator, the pieces are there. The puzzle is put together. The Steelers are one piece away from figuring this out, and from there, I think you are a contender, and a massive one when it comes to the AFC. Obviously, you got to get past Patrick Mahomes, but sometimes that comes down to luck of the draw. Patrick Mahomes has a tough route to the Super Bowl and the Steelers go the other way. You never know if you're going to meet him or not. It's worked in the past. It has gotten the Steelers to a Super Bowl in the past. You can never rule it out. So I do think it makes it a contender. I agree with that one. This is a wait and see thing. if I had to put a timestamp on the next time that I believe this could happen, I'd say next Thursday, next Friday, maybe. But that's when camp starts Wednesday. Aiyuk is not going to be there. Friday. That's 2 days in. Nothing's going down. They're fed up with it. Let's make it happen. From there, it goes to August. But next Friday is my next timestamp, which moves up dramatically from what it was at the beginning of this.